The kind of medicine that I like to practice is really building relationships. To be part of that journey, be invited to birthday parties or heart transplant anniversaries or something like that, really solidified, like, this is the kind of medicine I like to be involved in.
Welcome to the Mentor Files. I'm your host, Monica Royer, founder and CEO of Monica and Andy. Join me as I chat with leaders across the fields of entrepreneurship, parenthood, health, and lifestyle. This season, we're digging deeper than ever before to learn the story behind the story. Think of the show as one part Audible MBA and one part certification to be the confident CEO of your own life. Here we go. Today, I'm so excited to be sitting with two of my friends and people that I've had a great opportunity to work with. They are two Chicago-based business owners that are building a beauty empire, is the way that I like to think about it.
Thank you.
Suzie and Michelle, and I would love for you ladies to introduce yourselves.
I'm Suzie Carroll. I am a nurse practitioner and co-founder of the Fitz with my best friend, Michelle.
Oh, sweet. I am Michelle Shetty. I am a registered nurse, and I am also a co-founder of the Fitz.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the Fitz to start.
So the Fitz is a medical aesthetic and wellness practice in Chicago, in the Old Town neighborhood of Chicago, just a few blocks from here. It opened in 2020, right after the pandemic,
Right in
the pandemic, but right after the stay-at-home order was lifted. And we started it together. We were at a different med spa, and we wanted to kind of elevate the experience and bring the aesthetic and med spa world to people of like all shapes, all sizes, all backgrounds, because we felt like there was a little bit of that missing in at least Chicago and kind of nationally. So,
yeah. Well, and one of the things, there's so many different topics that we can get into, but that I'm most interested is that you had different careers first that have led into still what you're doing now. But I think one thing that's fascinating is kind of like the story behind the story is you get a chance to meet people. And so for people that are listening and for women that are like even thinking about that career choice, maybe they did something different before they had kids, or maybe they're just at a point in their life where they're like, you know what, I love what I'm doing, but I'm ready to do something new. Tell me a little bit about going from like hospital clinical setting, where I think you both were working previous to this, and then transitioning to having your own business.
I love that you brought that up, because I was thinking about that with you, because you're such a mentor to me. And I almost like intimidating to think of the success that you've had. And when we talk about the Fitz, I feel like we're just like such small potatoes compared to what you've done. But then knowing that you didn't come from this world either, it makes me understand like you did a lot of learning on your journey as well. So I started in nursing in pediatrics, and I particularly worked with children with cardiac disease. So I worked in DC at the Children's Hospital, and then I worked here at the cardiac care unit at Lurie Children's. And I really loved working with the team. I love kids. And it was so meaningful to really meet parents and families where they were, sometimes on the worst day of their lives, and to be with them on that journey. So there's some medicine that you practice and you meet a patient, maybe they come in with appendicitis, you take care of them for a night, they go home, and you never talk to them again. But the kind of medicine that I like to practice is really building relationships. Seeing a patient, you know, and children born with cardiac disease are in the hospital a lot. So they might go home for a little bit, they come back for another surgery, they get a heart transplant. So to be part of that journey, be invited to birthday parties or heart transplant anniversaries or something like that, really solidified, like, this is the kind of medicine I like to be involved in. I like to meet people where they are and then like build relationship with them, which is translated really well into aesthetics, because that's how I think about my patients today.
What's crazy is that I also found that when I was in the hospital, the patients I love to take care of were the hospice patients. And it wasn't because of the type of medicine, but it was because the end goal of a hospice patient, or like the actual goal, is to make them feel good, to make them feel comfortable. And so I know I didn't want to practice in the hospital setting forever, but I really loved making people feel good. And a lot of, not to be crass, but one of the doctors that I was talking to said, if you save someone from a heart attack, they'll thank you once. But if you make someone poop again, like a GI, they'll thank you forever because you're making them feel good, right? And that's kind of how I feel with aesthetics is like, if you make someone feel good, they'll always remember you. And so like, that's kind of how I found my niche in aesthetics. It's just kind of like, what's the end goal and like, how are we on this journey together? So.
And did you think when you were going into nursing to begin with, did you think that it's a place that you would stay forever in the clinical setting, or did you both, or like in the hospital setting, or did you both think separately that like, hey, I'm starting here, but I might want to do something different? Because I think that's what's interesting about when other people are thinking about their journeys is understanding like when the bug to maybe become an entrepreneur bit.
I mean, I've always been an idea person. And that's in our partnership. That's kind of how we roll is like, I'm the idea person. So I've always just gone with, little like threads here and there. I never thought when I was going into nursing, or I don't know if you did either, is like, I'm going to be a business owner and a nurse. That's kind of not a conventional way of thinking. But as we're working together, as we met and we just started talking, we kind of like empowered each other and got these ideas that kind of like grew together. And the first step that we ever actually really took, do you want to tell the story?
Sure. I know what you're going to say. So we'd been like playing with this idea of if we ever did this, what would we do differently? Oh, this could be better. We wouldn't do it this way. So we said, okay, if we're serious about stepping in here, we need to sit down and see if we're even on the same page. So she came over to my house. My daughter was probably like 7 months old or something.
Chaos.
Yeah. She was crawling across the table and we both took about 10 minutes and we just wrote what we wanted to build. And Suzie said, if what we both write down independently aligns, then we'll know that we're on the right track. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
And it was, I like have chills actually.
I know. We haven't talked about this in a while.
No. And it really solidified like, okay, we have the same values and the same goals for a business.
What did we both write down?
We both wrote down we wanted to create a place where people felt better leaving, even if they had nothing done. So we wanted to have warmth. We wanted to build people up. So in our industry, people are coming in with talking about things they've maybe never shared with anyone before, or their deepest insecurities. And sometimes it's something they've told all their friends, fine. But we wanted them to come in, even if we're suggesting to make changes, that they would still feel loved and supported and empowered on their journey, just to have a great experience. Yeah. But I think I said this before, like, I feel like I was kind of raised to be a teacher or be a nurse and then be a mom or in some combination of those. And Suzie always says, oh no, I knew I would own a business. And so maybe you didn't know it was going to be like related to nursing.
I just knew that I always have these ideas. And so I'm always going, like, I'm always thinking of what's next.
Yeah. And I think I really got to a point in the hospital where I thought, this is unsustainable. Working nights, working weekends, working holidays. I know I want to have a family. I'm getting burnt out. Interestingly, when I was younger, I could handle the sad stuff more easily. I think as I got older and could actually feel like closer and relate to families a little bit more, that it became even more difficult for me to see something awful happening to a child. So I was wanting something else. And I love detail work. That's why I love the ICU. I love having to be on my game. I like high pressure. But I was looking for something different. But I still didn't know own your own business. I just knew I wanted something outside the hospital that wasn't just like taking vital signs at a clinic.
That's so interesting because I think for people that are listening, thinking about starting their own business, I think one of the lessons I've learned in entrepreneurship. And it's not that you can't start something really successful at like the age of 21, but I think there's something about life experience and coming at entrepreneurship from an angle that's different, that brings something different to what you're doing. And so it's so interesting coming from the nursing background and having that hospital experience that brought you that like joy of caring for patients and making them feel good, and things that like, had you gone straight to doing what you're doing today, you might have just like skipped over and not understood. Totally. And so I think sometimes we talk to college kids that are coming out, like everybody wants to have their life mapped out. And I always say, life will it's going to map itself, but just don't be afraid to take the first step. Don't overthink like the first thing you're going to do too much, because wherever you start, it's going to lead you to all of these other places. And then the other thing that I really took away, I loved, and now I've been fortunate to have like executive coaching and like a little bit of a reflection on myself. And Suzie, for you to be like, I'm divergent. I have so many different ideas, right?
Sometimes it drives her crazy.
Right. But you didn't even realize you were becoming such a perfect pair. Because what I learned is that you want to have one person that's divergent, but another person that can kind of converge on like, all right, I heard all of the stuff that you're saying. Yeah. How do we map it out? And it's like flexibility versus structure and all of these things too. So what's it like being co-founders and friends? Because I have a co-founder who is my friend. I mean, we've been working together for like almost a decade, but he was a 20-year-old bachelor. I was like a mom. Like we're very different people. And so we didn't start off as friends. You know, we've just become friends over time because we don't have a choice but to be friends at this point. But being friends and having a business together, it seems like it works so beautifully for both of you. Like, why do you think it does? Because I think in certain cases you see people that are like friends, they have a business, they're like, oh my gosh, like we can't do this any longer.
Yeah. I think we were friends first, and we always acknowledge that. But in so many ways, we're also married. So not only like legally, but with our business, but we talk about it a lot. We say, oh, we need to feed the friendship. We need to just talk about non-business things. And I think that, I mean, it's not easy. We've had our disagreements. We're 3.5 years in to opening the business, but 4 years into like becoming business partners, and we're still learning about ways that we can better support each other, better work through things. But the conversation between the two of us is becoming, it's so open. And it can get uncomfortable, but like if I can't be uncomfortable with my partner, then like there's no growth. So we're always growing. We're always talking. She is like way, even from the introduction and talking about your nursing experience, she's a little bit more emotional and like you feel things. You're more on the connection person, and I'm more like the analytical, like crazy. And
but you kind of just you're a walking contradiction is what you are.
Yeah. But at least we know these things about ourselves and each other.
Well, what's so interesting about that, and just thinking about this from like a higher level perspective, like kind of looking down on it, you are so perfectly yoked to work together in a sense that you see, and if people are thinking about like, should I go into business with my friend? I think Michelle, you said one interesting thing, which is you had the same values. And so I think starting there, and like even my business partner, Brian, it's like, we have the same values and we come from the same place. And I think that's essential, but you have different personalities. And I think that's really important too, because if you both want to do the exact same thing, want to hover in the exact same area, if you're full of all of these ideas, not that you both don't have ideas, but I think having a balance between what one person enjoys doing and what another person enjoys doing is like one of the keys. Because if you both want to do the exact same thing all the time, I think it makes it really hard to do it, because then you're constantly getting in each other's way rather than being able to work together in order to like move the ball forward. And I feel like after 10 years in the business, so to speak, like I've seen a lot of people on different sides where like they go up and down.
Well, there's also no like exploration too. If you're just kind of going in the same lane, you're never going to like venture outside. So at least we're kind of growing the same direction, kind of like, but just taking different paths as far as like exploring different avenues. And then we come together and we say, okay, this is how we want to do it. And then we both have different ideas of how it can be done. And then we find some way, which is like a cool, different way to do things.
Well, Monica said you guys seem to work together so beautifully. And I almost chuckled because I thought, that sounds like you work together easily. But actually, beautiful is the perfect word for it, right? Because the most beautiful things in your life are the things that you worked for and struggled for. And there's a balance of like dark and light and beauty, right? So
the emotion.
I've done this too
the emotion.
I knew it wasn't easily. Only
I know that, but like, at first
like,
you think, are you perfectly paired, or Susie and Michelle just laughing all the time? But we laugh a lot, but we've had to learn to have the harder conversations faster so that things don't build. And, a few weeks ago, I had to have a difficult conversation with Susie, and I said, I knew that talking to you was the only way I was going to feel better. But I still was hesitant to have the conversation. Do you know what I mean? Like, because whatever we needed to talk through was going to be difficult. But I still knew at the end of the day, like, no matter what, that when we have the difficult talks, we are so much stronger for them. And I think when you talk about your value system, something that I've kind of been exploring a lot lately is trusting your gut, right? And so your nervous system is like constantly scanning your environment, constantly. Like, and maybe 10% of what our nervous system is doing is conscious, right? Like I look at Monica and I think, oh, I can tell she's engaged with me and she has kind eyes and I feel a connection with her. But your body's doing so much else subconsciously and sending you signals about it, right? And so I'm starting to try to identify more closely when I'm talking to someone or when there's a decision to be made and something is telling me like it doesn't feel right, or I don't feel safe here. Maybe I don't feel safe that I can trust you. Maybe I don't feel safe that I'm walking to my car and someone's around the corner, but I'm trying to listen to that gut more. And I'm trying to like keep close to the people that make me feel safe and warm. And I was talking to my staff about this actually yesterday, and somebody said, yeah, my friend told me that you should pick your partner that makes you like feel like a fireplace. Like they're cozy, they're warm, they're safe, right? Not like fireworks necessarily, but you want that safety net, that warmth feeling. I don't know, something I'm playing with.
But also that comes from experience. And we were talking the other day about maybe bringing someone on and joining our team. And, I said, oh, what about this person? And Michelle said, yeah, I don't know. And it was so much, because we've had this conversation, it was so much easier for us to just say, okay, if that's your first reaction or if that's your gut, like, let's just end the conversation. Let's not try to make this puzzle piece fit, because it's just going to bite us in the butt down the line.
I think that's so true. And trusting your gut, I think, is such a universal thing to consider, because I feel like sometimes as women, we're less trained to be able to do that. And I think as you get more assured in your decision making, as you get more assured in your business, definitely like leaning into your point to like, wait, I have that feeling again.
Yeah.
And especially as it relates to people, because for sure, in the early days, I feel like for us even, we'd have somebody that we loved, and then like the company would evolve and we're like, how do we evolve the job with them? Like, what's the thing that they could do next? And then you get to a point where you're just like, maybe the job can evolve with the person, but maybe the new job needs somebody new to do it too. And so it's like, it's hard to, especially as you've got two people, like Brian and I, a lot of times will have like a differing opinion about stuff, or there are things that we always agree about or whatever it is. But I think learning to kind of honor how the other person is feeling or even anticipate it is really helpful. Like, I feel like Brian and I are both extremely optimistic, but for him, it's like, he almost doesn't remember the bad experiences, because we'll get back and like, I'll be like, no, don't you remember?
That's
like 100 times in a row. Like, that has not worked for us. And he's just like, no, what are you talking about? And so it's like me starting to recognize that, or, with me, there's things that like he then evaluates too. And is like, hold up, Monica, we've made that bad decision like 10 times already. And like, here's why we should do something differently. But it's getting to know yourself better, but then getting to know the other person, because you're like, uh-oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Like the board yelled at us for that like 20 times already, but we're going to go into the board meeting and do the same thing. Like, same thing's going to happen. But it takes a long time to learn some of those lessons.
It does. And they're hard to learn, especially when it comes to people, But we've learned, we've pushed through, and again, we're in like kind of the baby phases of like compared to where you're at. So we've had the hard lessons, we're growing, and we're understanding each other. And
how hard is having a business from your perspective? Like, is it harder than you thought it would be? Is it easier than you thought it would be? Is it the same? Like, what was your anticipation of what owning your own business would be like versus the reality of it?
Every business owner you ever talk to or read about tells you how much hard work it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we were scared of hard work,
No.
right?
Mm-mm.
What I didn't expect was how hard it is. Not the work, but having to evolve yourself, having to grow, the pain, the hurt feelings, the disappointment in yourself, the disappointment in other people. For me, it is much more like the emotional work that you have to do. You know, you never want to have a difficult conversation with an employee. You never want to feel like you let an employee down or something.
Upset patient
or whatever it may be, you know, and when you're the backstop, it's on you. And so that has been harder than I expected it to be, I think. So that, yeah, the hard work doesn't scare me. I wasn't surprised by it, but the difficulty of it, I was surprised by. I think if I knew how hard it was going to be, I'm not sure I would have chosen it.
Mm-hmm.
But am I so glad that we did? Like, absolutely. And the other thing that I've been really grateful for recently is our struggles, which is maybe I wouldn't have said a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would have said, I wish I jumped over all of that stuff. The heart racing. What are we going to do? Is this going to ruin us? Terrified of the next move nights. Because now that we're in a place that I feel like we worked so hard to cultivate our work environment, our team, our trust in each other and the people around us, I don't think I would appreciate it the same way. I wouldn't be as grateful. I might not treat those staff members as well as I do because I know how rare it is and how much work it takes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, despite those first 2 years being really difficult, I'm happy.
Yeah. I think, yes to all of that. I agree. I think that I want to like echo everything she says, but add to, we also I don't think we were really prepared for the success of the Fitz. Like we knew we had this great idea and our values were there and we felt so passionately about it. And we knew it was going to be great. But what's been a lot of pressure is how great it's been.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds ridiculous and it sounds...
No, that's it. It's like the bigger kid, bigger problem. Like
Right.
the better you do,
Yes.
the farther there is to fall. Whereas
Exactly. And we have way more staff than we kind of thought we would have. And we have our patients are, you know...
And we've outgrown our space, basically.
Right. And patients are flying in and, you know, the stakes are so much higher. And so that's another added level of pressure.
Oh yeah.
And so that's been something that was kind of surprising and a great surprise. But I mean, you're right. Bigger kid, bigger problems.
It ups the stakes so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting how everybody that I've ever talked to about a business, and it's how you articulated it, Michelle, it's like, it's so much, the grit is so much grittier than you ever think you're going to have to get into. And I read something my brother was talking about recently, which is like a startup doesn't fail sometimes until the founder gives up. And I think you go through so many different stages. And I remember thinking a few years ago, how could anyone give up? Like, this is so fun. Like, I enjoy this so much. And then I went through another couple of years and I'm like, you know, I've never considered giving up, but I could see how it happens because the stakes in your personal life can become so high, the stakes and the stress. And you have to constantly, I think about it in a way that like, it's like every day I think this stress is like a gift of a sort. Like, I'm choosing this. I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's making me do it. There's people out there that don't have a choice but to do what they do. I have a choice. And so every day I have to be like, it's my choice. If I'm on Zoom till 7 p.m., if I've got a million things rolling in.
We've
course,
done this to ourselves.
Yes, it gets me down at times where it stresses, but then
Yeah.
you have to be like, you know what, I don't have to be here doing this. And I think that's an important thing, to walk through that proverbial door every day and be like, this is my choice. Because I feel like that's helped me get through moments where I'm like, you know what, there's so much good that comes from this that I take for granted, that if that just went away overnight, like there's a price to pay for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think about something like that stress.
I love
or
that
that
perspective.
level is like a price. And there's times like you go through it more. There's moments you'll get to where you're just be like, is this worth my family? Is this worth my fertility? Is this worth my, like the things that I might be giving up along the way?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to constantly reevaluate and say, you know what, like I'm okay with what I haven't got, because what I do have is like enough for those next steps. But I thought that was so interesting about this idea that it doesn't fail until you're just like, I'm done. And I really honor the people that like have to be like, I'm done. Like, I get it. You might not have the support network to keep doing it.
Yep. And we've both said, and we've both had the conversation of, you know, when do we feel like we would be out? Like we've had that conversation, and we both agree, like when our families are, you know, at risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we both kind of know that limit for each other.
Yep.
But I mean, the fact that that's a risk is not for the faint of heart, right?
No, my brother and I and my husband all did it at the same time. And my husband had a really horrific experience. And like, I think, yeah, there's a lot that like, if it didn't break us, I think made us stronger. But I'm surprised in retrospect that it didn't break us, because it was like the level of stress across all three things that we were doing was so significant that I sometimes think like, geez, my parents didn't deserve it. They didn't sign up for this. Like every day they're not like, yes, let's walk through this door again. You know, we've had them endure like a lot of stress over time. For sure.
That's interesting that you say it that way, that your parents didn't sign up for this, even though I know your parents are so proud of you and wanted to support that journey. But
yeah, I mean,
but the same, your children, you know, they didn't sign up for that. And then where Suzie and I, and where you were too, at a point in your life where considering children, dealing with infertility, the appointments that come along with that, trying to schedule that in, it can be overwhelming.
Because everything is a high priority.
Yes.
Well, and that's why I think I've loved getting to know you ladies and coming to the Fitz, because I think there's something about giving back to yourself. Like, and I wonder how you guys do it, because you're like kind of constantly doing like that, like that's my reprieve. And I feel like in disclosure, it's like I've done injectables, I've done facials, like the whole thing. But the thing I love so much about you ladies is like two things from like a clinical perspective. One, you'll never do more than you think should be done, which is why I trusted you to begin with. And two, you're like, it's all about coming from within and having the right stuff. It's not just about the moment that you're in a clinic and you're like, okay, I'm doing X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
It's like really about like holistically taking care of like your skin and yourself. And nobody's going to achieve that in like a single appointment. And I feel like you guys have stressed that so much.
Thank you.
And I think that's what's made all the difference. And I think those are the things that like I more live for, when I'm like, oh, like that's my reward to do like whatever it is. But given that that's what you do for a living, and by the way, you say like, I have a great business. I mean, your AOV is way better than mine. I can promise you that. I was like rethinking my entire business after coming to there, where I'm like, oh, like this is what I should be doing. Right? Like you invest in one person and like it's a little different than like the hospital cuddle box. Let's put it that way.
I love
I don't know. We love the cuddle box.
All different businesses. Yeah, right. Different economics behind it. But like, what do you do to like refuel yourselves? Because like, does it feel refueled when you're doing things like I'm just assuming there's like, that's like still work.
I get my own surgeries to my eyelids to help me make, this is what, 6 days out. Refueling ourselves. I think what's crazy as providers, because we're founders, but we're also providers, is we rarely get time to actually treat ourselves.
Okay.
And we are both kind of on this wellness journey, because that is something that we've been growing at the Fitz is our wellness practice, the peptides, the hormones, the weight loss medications. And I think both of us are kind of starting to, the last 3 years have wreaked havoc on our brains and our bodies, not only being pregnant and going through fertility treatments, but also the stress of building the business. But, this latter half of 2023 and definitely going into 2024, I think we both are being able to like exhale a little bit and be able to focus on like our internal mental and physical health, with the help of like, what's crazy is like the services that we have too. So you're working out a ton. I'm eating better.
So what do you do to recharge?
I sleep.
You do that a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Not a lot, but like
I'm a sleeper.
it's important because I think I've learned over time, and it's like and Irene, who's my executive coach, has said that like stress is almost like a muscle that you're able to build in a sense that like now I can take it all the way up to here from a stress level. And then like a few hours later, I can like be down here, but I have to force myself to be able to do it because like phone still dings late at night, like other things are happening. And I'm like, no, I brought myself back down.
Yeah.
Like I can't go back up. But I think it's really important that you can't live here all day, every day. And so like whatever it is, whether it's sleep, whether it's whatever, like you have to find something that takes your adrenaline from here to here. And it's kind of scary. We could have like this most stressful week and I could hit like Friday night. And I'm just like, just can't worry about this for the next like 24 hours. Right. Cause like I've learned after 10 years, like stress is still going to be there on Monday. And maybe if there's something I can do about it over the weekend, like I'm going to keep doing it. But I just can't give everything the equal amount of worry. Because what I realized after having a business is like, there is always something. There's literally like you hit and you're just like, oh, I'm good. And then ding. And there you are with like whatever the new thing is.
But that's actually something I've had to work on too. And that was one of the hard conversations that Michelle and I had I was like, go, 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 go. When I would text her and I'd want an answer and I'd have this idea and I'd want to implement it right away. And, that's not a healthy way to live. I was never not in the moment, thinking about the business, as far as like the growth aspect. And I mean, that's good, but also it's
everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation. But also when you have another person on the other end of your phone who's probably trying to enjoy some like family time, for the 15 minutes before bedtime, it's not always fair.
Totally. And I'm like the everything in extremes person too. So like, I'm not like, if I do something, like I can't moderate like anything.
It's hard.
We lived, I think, up here for 2 years. I can feel it in my chest when I talk about it. Like I can feel the tension right here. And what's interesting is when I get a whiff of it now.
I know.
My tolerance for it is none. I want to shut it down. And there was a couple of weeks ago, there were 2 days in a row that it was like one thing after the next. Every time I had a patient out of my room, somebody else was coming in to tell me something that needed to be handled. And so I was back up here and I was so uncomfortable because I'm used to being able to regulate it and just like downgrade it after it hits. And I fell up there again and I was like, whew, that was really bad.
Right.
But it's familiar in such a bad, way.
Well, and if you layer on motherhood to that for a minute too, right?
Yeah.
It's like, even today for like a second, I was like, I don't feel 100%. You're going to feel 100% today.
Today is the day.
Today is the day that we're going to get through. And hopefully she's fine or whatever. But it's like, you've got like a million things going on. And then it's the call from the nurse.
Yeah.
Or you've got a million things going on and they need you for something. Right. And that's a priority where you're just like, hey, that's my limit. Right. Like now she needs me to do something or he needs me to do something, whatever it is. And you're like, I need to move to doing this. And I think those are the things that moms over-index in so hard when your business over. And there's great dad business owners who are probably doing the same thing too. But it's like, as a mom, like the buck is stopping with us. And so it's hard to regulate all of those things because like your child is like the one thing that you can't necessarily plan. You could plan the day.
Yeah.
But like then something new happens and you're just like,
and you know when you snap at them or you aren't giving them your full attention because your mind is elsewhere, your mind's on work. Like it's a terrible feeling. And I feel like we have to work really hard at like, okay, now I'm with my kids and I want to be present with them and they bring me that joy.
Definitely. And wait till they get older because like Bella's kind of like seen all of this stuff now. And so we'll be driving somewhere and she'll you know, I'm very flexible. So I learned about my personality through coaching, which is good, but it's also bad because sometimes I have to check into my flexibility to be like, wait, am I being too flexible here? Or like, and so I'm very go with the flow. She's like my husband, extremely structured. There's like a checklist of homework where she literally is checking stuff off, the complete opposite of me. And so I'll be like, oh yeah, like my brother will call, oh, we'll stop by or whatever. And she'll be like, Mom, your flexibility is like getting the best of you now. She's like, it's getting in the way of my structure. I'm feeling uncomfortable because I don't have enough time to anticipate stuff. This is like a 12-year-old that's telling me kind of this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, now all of these great things I'm learning are just biting me right back in the face here. Because like she's now lecturing me on my personality. I love that. And like the things that I have like strengths.
We all need a Bella.
Yeah. But I was thinking like, oh my gosh, it'd be so cool to get our kids' personality tested, which is where Irene, the coach, said some of the testing started. Because it's like so much of that is like ingrained in who we are. And like, you don't change that much from a kid in terms of like some of those traits.
Right.
When it comes to parenting too, I heard that someone, I don't want to like break your heart because Bella is over 10 years old, but someone said you only have 10 years when you are the most important person in your kid's life.
I can tell you it's at least 12 or 13.
Okay, good.
But I feel like COVID had played a role in that.
That's true.
Too.
That's
and maybe it's different with different kids too.
Yeah.
So it depends.
But like you only have like a very short window of time where it's like you're the most important part of your kid's life. Otherwise it becomes friends and best friends and partners and homework and, you know, and that like hit me because my boys are 2.5 and I've got a 9-month-old. And, but then it's like, what's the right answer when it comes between work and kids? Of course, it's always going to be family on the big picture, but you know, we're working for the kids. And so when it's like 6:00 and you have to choose, do I have to do this? Do I have to attend to work or do I want to spend time with the kids? Like there's never a right answer. And as like moms, I think we're constantly struggling with that.
Totally. One bit of good advice I got, I'm always struggling with that too. And I bring this to all the time is like, if I can just get like 30 minutes and that could be like 8 to 8:30, just like some time that finally becomes just about her. It's helpful. Cause I feel like to your point, sometimes, I mean, I'll be on till like 7:00 and other things are happening and like, I just can't get off.
Right.
And then the other thing that always makes me feel better is like now in my 40s, I can't like make a decision without my mom again. So then I'm like, all right.
Oh, this is going to come back for you.
Like I'm like at some point, you know, like, I don't know. So I agree. Like they get tired of you, but then I'm like, but I can't even like, if I'm on a plane, I'm like, hey mom, we're about to take off. Hey mom, we're landing. Oh, we just got to the hotel. I was like, I check in with my mom like 165 times a day too. So,
and what's great about Bella's age too, is that she's at, and even Ellie's age is they're at ages where you can say, you know, I'm not going to sit down and play with you because I'm working for you.
Yeah.
And there's a level of understanding there that like really is great.
But you saying like just 30 minutes is interesting because even 10 minutes, right? If I just put my phone aside and I sit on the floor and I play with her for 10 minutes, just her and I, that we feel so much more connected than if I sort of sat on the couch with my computer and like kind of tried to engage with her and kind of tried to do work at the same time. I don't feel as engaged with her and she doesn't feel that way either. So if you could just isolate it even in small chunks. And the other part is having a partner that gets it, right? And whether it's your business partner or my husband, who's also one of our business partners, Suzie gave me a necklace this year for Christmas that had 2 different size circles that were, I got 2 different size circles that are like connected. And the idea is we're 50-50 partners, but we're never actually going to be 50-50. Our availability to each other, to the business, to our families, it's never going to be equal. One of us will always likely be carrying more than the other.
Or it might feel like it.
But the point is like we're bound together. And that was really a thoughtful gift because we have to say that at times to each other. You know, this fall when I was going through the transfer and the miscarriage, like Suzie really carried a lot for me there because I was going through so much emotionally. And there have been equally other times when I feel like I'm carrying more.
Yeah.
or doing more, but that's why we're successful.
Yeah, totally.
Because we recognize it. And I think any marriage, it's like that. Someone said you're always feeling like you're doing more.
100%.
But the other person always feels that way too.
Definitely.
So it's like
which is so interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I think we just found our new monthly segment because this has been 45 minutes and I can tell by my phone lighting up that it's time. I'm just guessing, but we have to do this again.
Yeah, I want to
feel
talk
like
more.
this is like the beginning of the conversation.
Me too.
100%.
I would love to come back.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, so much. I mean, this is like magical.
I
feel like we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, like I feel like I'm getting so much advice from you, and I'm hearing things about Suzie that I didn't even know.
At some point, we could bring Brian into this, and then it'll be a real party.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you both so much.
Thanks
This
for
was
having
amazing.
us.
Thanks for having us.